What's the creepiest, most interesting solved mystery? Debugging behind the Iron Curtain, computers at a Soviet train station would randomly bug out and no one knew why. One guy eventually traces it to when livestock was being brought in from Ukraine, where Chernobyl left the cows with so much radiation they could flip bits. The McStay family disappearance and murder. I am going to fuck it up if I fully explain, but the short version is a family of 4 is found missing, nothing disturbed in their home, it looked like they just up and left. A search is performed and their car is found near the Mexico border. Border surveillance is checked and a family of 4 who resembles them, on grainy video, is found so everyone thinks they were running away from something. 1. A few years later, someone off-roading in the California desert stumbles upon their remains. After digging deeper into the family's relationships, they arrest the business partner of the slain father of the family. And if I am not mistaken, the trial is just starting or has been postponed to start very soon. The body in room 348. This is another one I have posted about, but it's such a good mystery. Really, don't read my summary, go for the article. A man is found dead in his hotel room. He enjoys drinking and eating less than healthy and has been a lifelong smoker. It looks like natural causes from a lifestyle that caught up with him. He was found lying on the floor as if staggering for the door. The autopsy says otherwise. He has got a laceration in his scrotum and it's bruised and swollen as if he would been given a hard kick. There is bruising in his groin that rises up through his hips and abdomen. Inside, his organs are bruised and lacerated. It looks like he was brutally beaten. However, his hotel room was normal, except, for his corpse. Nothing out of order, no blood, no signs of anything foul. Case goes cold. A new detective is brought in, one known for solving the unsolvable. He sits down with the medical examiner to go over autopsy photos and such. Then, he figures it out. The man had been shot through his scrotum. That was the laceration and the wrinkled skin folded to obscure the bullet hole. The bullet had traveled up through his body causing the other injuries. So, who did it? There had been a group of men in the room next door, and one of them pulls out a gun and starts playing with it. It went off, firing through the wall into the victim's room where it hit him. The man used toothpaste to fill the bullet hole, which had been through a part of the wall that was not easy to notice. There is a couple that come to mind for me. The 30-year cold case murder of Raina Marokuin that was solved when a New York family found a 55-gallon drum in the crawl space of their basement that had been sitting there for years through many previous homeowners. The original Spider-Man murder, pretty freaky if you think about it. Makes you want to double-check your attic and basement often, just in case. This man snuck into a couple's house and lived in their attic for years in a tiny makeshift room with a false door. He would come out at night to eat. One evening the wife woke up to her husband being stabbed to death in the kitchen. Police were perplexed because there was no sign of breaking and entering or any other evidence at that. She lived in the home alone with this guy secretly living in the attic for about a year but left the house abandoned after much heartbreak. A couple of the original detectives on the case just couldn't get the case off their mind. So they would drive by the abandoned house every so often just to see if they could come up with some new ideas on solving the case. One night on a random drive-by, they see a shadow of a man in the upstairs attic window and quickly bust in to see what was going on. By a mere seconds, one of the cops catches a glimpse of his foot going up into this tiny trapdoor. When they push it open, they find this man living in a tiny makeshift room with newspaper clippings of the murder. He would eventually come clean and confess to the murder. The thought of someone living in your attic or basement secretly without you knowing gives me the heebie-jeebies. Posted this elsewhere, but the weepy voice killer was a serial killer who would murder women and then call the police weeping, stating his regret and saying he needed to be caught and could not help himself. Some of his calls are readily available on the internet and are pretty chilling. Anyway, he bit off more than he could chew one night with a prostitute named Denise Williams who sensed danger, hit him with a glass bottle and with the help of another dude managed to escape. Paul Michael Stephanie was caught when he sought medical assistance and was identified by the dude who had clashed with him. He was convicted of a murder and attempted murder, but later confessed to 3 murders and 2 attempted murders when he realized he would die of cancer. The Benjamin Kyle mystery. Benjamin Kyle was the alias chosen by an American man who has severe dissociative amnesia after he was found without clothing or identification and with injuries next to a dumpster behind a fast food restaurant in Georgia in 2004. As a result of his lack of personal memories, between 2004 and 2015, neither he nor the authorities were sure of his real identity or background. Despite searches that used widespread television show-based publicity and various other methods, it was recently solved in 2015. It took 11 years but they found out his true identity. 2 girls were on their way to a college party in 1971 in South Dakota, and all of a sudden went missing, virtually vanished with no leads. They tore up the property of a classmate who was in prison on rape charges, but found no evidence of the girls. 42 years later, in 2013, a nearby creek dried up and revealed a car with the two girls' bodies inside. In Pennsylvania, there was an urban legend of a thing called the Green Man or Charlie No Face. For many years, people would say they had seen this weird human-like creature wandering through the streets at night. It had no face and had green skin. After sighting became more and more common, some people started investigating. That was when they discovered Raymond Ray Robinson, the man behind the urban legend. Due to an accident with a power line, he became severely deformed. Because the way he looked, people would cause panic whatever place he would go. His only choice was to walk at night. He was so scary that, more than one time, people tried to hit him with their cars, thinking they had found the famous monster Green Man. Search his name and you will understand why people were scared of him. The case of the vanishing blonde. After a woman living in a hotel in Florida was raped, viciously beaten, and left for dead near the Everglades in 2005, the police investigation quickly went cold. But when the victim sued the airport Regency, the hotel's private detective, Ken Brennan, became obsessed with the case. How had the 21-year-old blonde disappeared from her room, unseen by security cameras? The author follows Brennan's trail as the PI worked a chilling hunch that would lead him to other states, other crimes, and a man nobody else suspected. Yoo Young-chul, Korean serial killer, home invader who was released from police custody twice, once by walking out, and made into the 2008 film Chaser, was eventually hunted down and captured by vigilante pimps of the girls he murdered. A school bus driver kidnaps 3 girls on 23 August 2002, 21 April 2003 to April 2004. He holds them captive in his house in a Cleveland City neighborhood. For rape and torture, one of the girls gives birth to a daughter on 25 December 2006. They escape 6 May 2013, almost 11 years after the first. Ariel Castro, kidnapper of Michelle Knight, Amanda Berry, and Georgina DeJesus, rescued by Charles Ramsey. He has a song about his initial interview, Dead Giveaway. I have posted about this one before, but the Death Valley Germans article is an amazing write-up of the case and methods used to solve it by the man who cracked it. I am going to try to explain. No, there is too much. I will summarize. A family of German tourists go missing on their US vacation. They are tracked to Death Valley. Their rented van is found abandoned off an abandoned service path. There is no sign of them. They disappeared in the valley in July, when even experienced outdoorsmen would have struggled to survive with proper gear. Why were they so far from the tourist spots of Death Valley? Where did they go? Were they kidnapped? Carjacked? It amounts to a series of unfortunate events. It was determined they made a last-minute choice to sightsee there, misunderstood a map, and instead of turning around, assumed there would be ranger stations and pressed on. The unkept path caused the van to break down. Looking at their map, they saw a US military installation. Being from Europe, to them, that meant it would be manned with patrols. It was not. They set off for help in the direction of the base, the one direction no one thought to check because as Americans, the rescuers knew there would be no help that way. A health card for one of the family members and scraps of bones were found to confirm what happened. Really, though, read the article, it's fascinating. The Dr. Bogle and Mrs. Chandler mystery. Their bodies were found on New Year's Day, 1963 by an empty riverbank in Sydney. I don't think they could find the cause of death at the time, and it was very suspicious with their half-naked bodies covered with cardboard. Plus both were married but not to each other, and had left a New Year's Eve party together earlier that night, so jealous revenge theories abounded. Turns out it was carbon monoxide poisoning escaping from the dry river bed, which had dissipated by the time police arrived the next day. Hydrogen sulfate, not carbon monoxide. Hydrogen sulfate is a heavy gas that stays low to the ground. They were unfortunately fucking in a slight depression along the river where the gas could easily collect. The gas came from a local factory that had been dumping waste into the river. Robert Hansen would hunt women in the Alaskan wilderness after kidnapping them. This was made into the movie, The Frozen Ground, with John Cusack playing Robert Hansen. Dr. Harold Shipman, a family general practitioner that made unsolicited house calls on his patients, some with no physical ailments. He would murder them, alter their medical records, then sign their death certificate stating natural causes and organizing their cremation to cover his tracks. This one's pretty widely known on Reddit, but Lori Erica Ruff. Short version is that she was a Texas mother and wife whose past was shrouded in mystery from her husband and in-laws, who suspected she was hiding something and felt that she was lying about her age. She appeared older than she was claiming to be. Her behavior became increasingly erratic, and her husband filed for divorce. She killed herself on Christmas Eve 2010. after which her in-laws went through her private belongings and found a birth certificate for Becky Sue Turner and documents requesting a name change from Becky Sue Turner to Lori Kennedy, her maiden name. It was discovered that Becky Turner had actually died in a fire at the age of 2 in the 70s. From what people were able to dig up, Lori had somehow obtained Becky's birth certificate and used it to petition a name change for herself to Lori Kennedy. Investigators were able to find only a few people who knew her before she married her husband. Her identity was finally discovered in 2016 thanks to forensic DNA evidence and social security records. She was Kimberly McLean, a Pennsylvania woman who had run away as a teenager. We still don't know what she was up to in the 2 years between when she left Pennsylvania and when the next sightings of her show up in California 2 years later. I am probably messing up the details of the story. It's an interesting one, though. Links to the documents can be found in the comments. Thanks for watching. Share your story in the comment.